Oh, Lordy, y'all see me digging in my eye, Lord. But, yo, welcome wherever you are, morning, noon, day, or night. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I'm Camron Hurt. I'm one of your co-hosts for the Black News Briefing. Omar couldn't be with us today, but we are wishing him well, and we will see him next week. We have so many interesting topics to get into today about with you. We're going to be talking about everything from anti-Semitism to 1 year of George Floyd being dead. What does that mean? What does that look like? How do we honor his sacrifice? We're going to get into how I feel about all of that. We're also going to be honoring the legendary Dr. Ronald E. McNair, who is a personal hero of mine. And I cannot wait to share all this stuff with you guys. And then, at the end, people been irritating me, so we're gonna have to tell them to pick up their feelings and go that way. So we're gonna get into all this and more when we come back to you guys. So let's get into it. What's going on, you guys? Again, I'm Camron Hurt, your host for this evening. It's kind of weird. I'm flying solo today, so I don't really know how I feel about that. Nobody to bounce the energy off of, but still going to be a great show nonetheless. And you guys, thank you so much for all the support you've shown us. This is our 5th episode of this season, and we are just blown away by the amount of love and support that we have gotten from you guys. So if you guys like the show, hit the like button, subscribe, and tell us what you think. If you want to see different type of content, let us know what you'd like to know. And of course, while we're live, feel free to interact. I'm here for all of the questions, all of them. We also want to give a special shout out to our sponsor. Yes, Black News Briefing is brought to you in part by Positivity Water. Positivity Water is a Black-owned small business that works on getting water out to our people. So Google, order, they ship. So get you some positivity water in your life. All right, so we're about to change gears just a little bit. We're going to jump into the Black History Fact and HBCU News of the Week. So let's get into that segment right now. So up this week, we are honoring, again, a personal hero of mine, Dr. Ronald E. McNair. Dr. Ronald E. McNair is from North Carolina. He is a graduate of North Carolina A&T. We see you, represent. Also, he is a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Shout out to all the Omegas out there. Not only that, but Dr. McNair was an astronaut. He was the first Black astronaut to go into space. He was really a trailblazer. And he worked his way up from an impoverished community, from being a doctor of science to ending up being an astronaut. And unfortunately, he lost his life. He was one of the 7 people who died in the Challenger explosion in the 80s. And sadly, that is how his life came to an end. What's been amazing is not only everything that Dr. McNair was able to accomplish while he was alive, but also since he's been gone. And some of his accomplishments include having buildings on MIT's campus named after him, public library in Utah named after him. He also has a crater on the moon named after him. That is a level of elevation we can all only hope to get into one day and be able to have a crater on the moon named after us. It's pretty sick. Not only does he have the crater on the moon named after him, but he's personally affected my life. There's a scholarship set up in his name, in his honor, the Ronald E. McNair Scholars Program. And that is a scholarship that's for underprivileged, underrepresented student populations, low income and or first generation students who are seeking to go to grad school. And I am grateful and honored and humbled to tell you guys that I am actually a Ronald E. McNair scholar. So Shout out to the McNair Scholars Program. It afforded me an amazing opportunity to be able to go and conduct research for a summer, get my research published, and present my research. And again, I can't tell you how just amazing that is for me and what the experience meant for me. Also gave me the chance to have a professional training for my GRE. And I also received some monies to go to grad school and to visit grad schools as well. As well as on top of all these perks, a brother got paid too for his research. So that is just my experience with the McNair Scholars Program. If you are a student, if you're looking to go to grad school, you're in your senior year, or you are transitioning after you have 60 credits, apply for the program. Definitely all of my HBCU students, please apply for the Ronald E. McNair Scholars Program. It's free money. Get your money, all right? Get your money. That's what it's all about. From there, we're going to go ahead and transition into the news. So you guys know this part. It's my part. I'm going to kill you guys with some of the current events going on today. So let's go ahead and get into that. All right, you guys, I am back, and we're going to jump into some news of the week. Now, we got a lot to cover. Not a little bit, but a lot of it, because it's been so much going on in our world, and we're just going to jump right into it. We've been talking a lot about the situation in Palestine and Israel. And with it, we've been very unapologetic of our stance of supporting the Palestinian people as they fight for liberation. And with that, though, there seems to be a gaslight that's been lit. And many people are saying that now we're seeing a sharp rise in anti-Semitic crimes and hate crimes towards people of the Jewish faith. That is 100% true, that we have seen a rise in hate crimes against Jewish people. However, what I don't like is the skewed narrative that all of a sudden this is happening. Hate crimes against Jews have been going up since, you guessed it, our man Trump occupied the White House, okay? The twice impeached, one-term disgraced former president, shout out to Sonny Halston for making sure that we address this man with his full titles, but he really gave a green light go on the Jewish people. We heard him quote certain stereotypes, anti-Semitic stereotypes about Jewish people and their relationship with money and the media. He's even quoted saying that he wanted his daughter to marry a Jew because it'd be good for business. We haven't forgot. You know what we also haven't forgot? We haven't forgot that in Charlottesville, when the racist, neo-Nazi, redneck, KKK, police officers, and everybody else who was a part of that whole rally with tiki torches. Tiki torches? Why tiki? Anyways, we know that one of the things that they chanted while they were marching was, Jews will not replace us. As a black man, I've never had to worry or feel or have any type of intimate fear of somebody who is Jewish. It makes no sense to me. You find that in history, black people and Jewish people share a trauma bond. And what I mean by that is usually where one isn't welcome, the other isn't either. People are quoting here recently with this spike in Jewish hate crimes about the Holocaust. Now, don't get me wrong. The Holocaust was mainly perpetuated against people of the Jewish faith, 100%. However, it was not free for people who look like me to walk around. In fact, many black people, numbers cannot even, they don't even have accurate numbers from how many black people were a part of the Holocaust. But we know that black Germans who came over in World War I and had kids and marriages with white Germans, we know that Hitler said that he detested them and that they were trying to drown out the Aryan race. He also equated it to black people coming into Europe to being done by the Jews who ultimately wanted to get rid of all the Europeans. Not true, and we know that. But we also know that the World War II didn't just span in Europe; it was fought in Africa as well. And many Black POWs from African nations, as well as Black POWs from France and America, faced torture and death camps as well. So when you talk about the Holocaust to try to greenlight or as your moral compass of Jews have been through this, for me as a Black male, I look at it and I'm like, I know they've been through that, and it's something horrible. And it's not something that I have to reconcile with as a Black person. It's something that white Europeans have to reconcile with because it was something that carried out by them. Point blank, full stop. Nothing else to say after that. I don't have any part of that. It has nothing to do with me. In fact, my people were persecuted by it too. Not to the same extent, not to the same number, but also fell victims of the Holocaust. And again, going back to that trauma bond and that connection, Black people in general, no specific nationality, but Black people and Jewish people have always, for the most part, shared a peaceful existence. Namely because you can't put a specific racial color on being Jewish. There are many Black Jewish people. Shout out to Whoopi Goldberg. She's Black and she's Jewish. We also know that there's a large portion of Ethiopia that has a large Jewish community. And not only there in Ethiopia, but they've also been in as well as Israel. And no later than 2016-17, Black Jews were marching for being treated like secondhand citizens. And what this goes to is the point that this isn't a Jewish problem. This is an Israeli government problem. And for whatever reason, we refuse to look at the Israeli government for the crime, the human rights crimes that they have perpetuated. And for the life of me, I can't understand it, can't really stomach it, don't want to, and don't have a need to. But it has to stop. And that's all that matters. Your side notes are really annoying. Your side conversations, again, it seems like extreme conservatives love to do this thing to deflect. And when a conversation is brought up, it's like, well, what about this? Well, what about that? And going along with this subject, I've seen several Democratic Congresspeople speak out about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in the same sentence. And conservatives are loving to say this is giving very much all lives matter. Why are they posting these all lives matter type posts and whatnot? Are you outside of your damn mind or just, no, you have to be. Because when you guys literally say all lives matter, you defend it to your teeth. Now that you're getting the treatment, you do not like the treatment. The hypocrisy is sickening. The hypocrisy is appalling, and it will be called out whenever we see it. Now, with that being said, I do agree. If you're going to post about anti-Semitism, full stop. Anti-Semitism, give it its shine. If you're going to talk about Islamophobia, full stop. Post just about that. Give it its shine. If you're going to talk about police brutality against Black people, full stop. Nothing else. Give it its shine. And if you're going to talk about Asian hate crimes, talk about that. Full stop. Give it its shine. And we have to be consistent. So I challenge people to be consistent, but I also want to send a very sharp, go straight to hell to anybody who is all of a sudden has a problem with that all lives matter type messaging. But when it's Black people, we heard you. We heard you. Also, keeping with the subject of Israel and Palestine, a ceasefire was enacted last week. The ceasefire, it just stops the bombings in Gaza. That's it. We have seen Israeli people be beaten. Not Israeli. We've seen Palestinian people be beaten. Palestinians in Israel be beaten. A young girl was actually shot in the back of the head while walking out of her home by Israeli troops. We have seen people still be just abused at their place of worship. The Friday of Eid, we saw We saw Israeli troops again going into one of the most holy sites for all of Islam. And we saw them tear gas, pepper spray, beat, and arrest. And now Israel is on this massive arresting campaign within their own country of arresting Palestinians, specifically Palestinians in Sheikh Jarrah. And Sheikh Jarrah is, again, the contested area in Jerusalem that basically the Israelis are trying to expel Palestinians out of their homes. Well, since the whole world is watching now, what are they doing instead of beating them and shooting them in plain sight? They're arresting them and saying they're terrorists. And we see that there just seems to be a whole lot of use of the word terrorism whenever it has anything to do with an adversary, specifically to Western culture and values. Apart from that, we also know that not only are we seeing a spike in that, but we know that calling Palestinians terrorists does nothing for me. Because I've seen a lot of Caucasian countries do the exact same thing and not be called that. I also know that the Black Panther Party was also called terrorists. And we know that they were not that. They were a liberation movement. But to call it terrorism, you can get everybody to hate them. So we're not going to dive into that narrative. We're not going to support any part of that narrative. Full stop. All right, moving on, but still keep it with anti-Semitism because, I love hypocrisy and I like to call it when I see it. This week we had Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. If you guys don't know who she is, she's a congresswoman out of Georgia, northern Georgia. I want to say like the Rome area of Georgia. And she is an absolute lunatic. And I do not say that lightly. I mean, the chick is batshit crazy. She once, speaking of anti-Semitism, she blamed Jewish people for sending 5G laser beams from their towers into us to make us all sick and whatnot. What in the Scientology sci-fi special is she actually talking about? But she said that, and we were wondering, since the Republican Party has been so strong on anti-Semitism for the past 2 weeks, we wondered what their response would be. The response has been from House Leader Kevin McCarthy that basically she's wrong for what she says, but the Democrats are saying worse. Pause. What Democrat, because this is what Marjorie Taylor Greene did, what Democrat compared wearing masks to being put in a gas chamber, or being burned alive, or being starved to death, or being put in a work camp? Y'all waiting too, because I can't name one either. So with that, I think it's very, very, very important that we keep our focus and we keep the heat on our politicians for gaslighting. Do not gaslight us about certain issues if you are not all in, okay? When it comes to people's rights, I'm for everybody's basic human rights. Nothing else to be said. And I don't take that I would say it's a cause. I don't take that cause lightly. It is something where you have to advocate when you can. When you see something, you say something. And we all try our best. But don't have your head in the sand for 4 years and then come out and all of a sudden you care about human rights. Did you care about human rights when your president called the people marching very fine people? Did you care about human rights when George Floyd was being killed and you guys still backed the blue? Did you care about human rights when those white men were marching in Charleston and Charlottesville, and saying Jews will not replace us? Did you care about human rights then? We know the answer, hell no. So don't try to gaslight us now by saying all of a sudden you care about human rights. It's a lie, and we're better than that. All right, we're going to move on. Still on the subject of human rights, I want to talk to you guys about Ronald Greene. Ronald Greene was a black man in Louisiana who was pulled over by state troopers. Upon being pulled over, he was dragged from his car. Well, he was immediately tased. He told them, "I'm your brother. I'm just scared." They put him on the ground. The man's clearly terrified. I'm sorry, this is actually really hard for me because I usually, after George Floyd, well, before George Floyd, I try not to watch clips of black men dying. This one, though, I did take the time to watch the video in its entirety. And he's put on the ground, and he is tased a couple more times. He's beaten, closed fist, beaten, kicked. And one officer can be heard as he has his brings blood on his hands. He says, "I hope this motherfucker didn't give me AIDS." And what's wild to me is, looping this in with what we previously talked about, it's wild to me how people can't see that saying all Jewish people or Jewish people have a lot of money. People can see that that's anti-Semitic, but they can't see the inference that a black person has AIDS as being racist. But we can continue there. That was really, honestly, the best part of the video, was that comment. From that point, you hear Green saying that he does need help. They leave him face down. They go and they wash their hands with water so they get his blood off of him. And he dies. When he dies, they tell his family that he died in a vehicle accident running from the cops. Ronald Green died before George Floyd. And we're only just now hearing about this because of a court order that forced them to release the tapes. Ronald Green was murdered. Ronald Green was murdered in 2019. I'm going to be honest with you, in watching the video and in looking at the facts of the case, this video is worse by far than the George Floyd murder. Something has to be done. Something has to be done. There is a bill right now that sits in the Senate, the George Floyd Policing Act. Call your senators. Call your senators. Urge them to vote. Urge them to vote in favor of that bill. Not only should we urge them to vote, but where to protest at? I'm outside with it, okay? Y'all tell me when and where, and I'm outside with it. So where to protest at? Where's it at? And what makes you think that you can keep killing people, lying about their cause of death, and then think that you have a right to where your stuff doesn't get burnt to the ground? Why do you think that you can keep abusing people and they will continue to stay peaceful? Now listen, I choose peace. I do. But it can go either way of whatever it needs. Malcolm X once said, "I give peace to those who give me peace." And that's that on that. But to have another black man murdered, to have another obvious cover-up, because 3 of the 4 officers still have their jobs. One of the officers who admitted to beating the, quote, shit out of George Floyd, I believe he took his own life or died soon after. He may not always come when you want him, okay? But the other 3 still have their jobs, still patrolling the streets, could pull over any of us at any time if we're in Louisiana. That's disgusting. That's sickening. And the state of Louisiana needs to be held accountable. Call the state of Louisiana while you're making your calls too. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we give out the phone numbers to these places, to the Louisiana State Patrol Office, for you guys to call when we post this clip, so you guys know who to call and who to give your grievances to. Because again, we're not cattle. And I say, and even saying that's ironic, because that's how we were first seen, and some would argue that's how we're still seen. We're seen as property. We were seen as nothing more than a cow. Only 3/5 of us counted into the population, and they called that a compromise. And the implications of that are still being felt today. So with that, I want to send all my love, all my prayers, all my support to Ronald Green's family. His sister, who's kind of taken up the mantra of getting justice for him, actually did not ever see the video until Monday. She saw it on Monday. That was the first time seeing it. After being lied to, after being given the runaround for over a year about what's taking so long to bring justice, according to the Louisiana State Patrol, they did not release the video just so it didn't interfere with ongoing investigations. Yeah, we heard that before. But we have it's a new day in the Department of Justice. We have two very strong civil rights attorneys who now hold the top two positions in the Department of Justice. And while they're investigating Cleveland Police Department, while they're investigating the Minneapolis Police Department, they need to go ahead and put this on their list too. We want to see every one of them brought to immediate justice. It's important. If we live in a democracy, then they need to be brought to justice. If not, then this democracy is continuing to fail. And we're saying that's okay. Moving on from that, but also segueing, is that yesterday marked 1 year of George Floyd's death. For me, George Floyd's death it was another black man dying. I will never understand, even though I'm grateful, I will never understand what made the world wake up when George Floyd died. It's not a day that I care to commemorate, because I as a person, I can't commemorate just George Floyd's death without commemorating Mike Brown, Ahmaud Arbery, Sandra Bland. I think I said Sandra Bland already. Breonna Taylor, who never got justice. But don't worry, we're still coming for you. We're still coming for you, James Cameron. Or Daniel Cameron, I'm sorry. We're coming. We're coming slow, but we're coming. Trayvon Martin. So, and the list goes on and on and on. Poor Tamir Rice. It just goes on. And to have this day where I felt like the news media was kind of, and social media was kind of commemorating this loss, like, hey, we're a year out, but look how far we've come. It means nothing to me. It means absolutely nothing to me. George Floyd is a name, is a soul, is a person. There are similar souls, there are similar people who met the exact same fate. And again, to commemorate one, I have to commemorate all. And if I did that, I would live every day having to relive tragic events that have killed my people. And I already live with the memory of it. But I sure as hell do not care to live for seeing it replayed over and over and over again with no action. You know, I'm not saying move on. We can never move on. This is our reality. There's nothing for us to move on to. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, has there been strides? Yeah, there's definitely been strides. There's definitely been strides since George Floyd's murder. But systematic strides? Call me when y'all pass that reform bill. I'll give you a hand clap then. This notion that George Floyd sacrificed himself so we all could see, fuck that. Excuse my language, but wholeheartedly mean that. He did not sacrifice himself. He was murdered. He was murdered. So he had no say in the matter. People who sacrifice are able to choose to give up something to accomplish something. He did not. choose to die. And to say that is insulting to his very memory and is a slap in the face to every Black person in America. Cut that narrative out. Stop that. We're beyond it at this point. As we also, but with that, President Biden did meet with George Floyd's family. He also was able to meet with the baby. So that's really cool. And I just really think that we have a lot more work to do. We have a lot more ground to cover before we celebrate anything. And we're going to still be out here. We're going to be in these streets. We're going to be on social media. We're going to be in your neighborhoods. We're going to be at your workplace. We're going to be everywhere. And you will never forget. We're not going to let you forget. Because we can. Simple as that. Switching gears now, we're going to touch on some COVID news. So we've seen an inquiry being called for an investigation into the Wuhan lab. Wuhan lab is a lab in China where the coronavirus is said to have had its origins, whether naturally or as an experiment or something along those lines. As it is, the Wuhan lab needs to be held accountable. An absolute inquiry is deserving. We cannot trust the Chinese government for a plethora of reasons. They knew about this disease several months before they informed the rest of the world. And who knows what that could have done. And I support that. Also within COVID news is we're seeing now with the CDC coming out with new guidelines like once a week. It seems for the mask mandates. And now we're seeing that if you're fully vaccinated, then you do not need to wear masks outside. And if you're around other vaccinated people, whether outside or inside, you don't need to wear it. And that's great news for people who are trying to get back to life as normal. Black people, we've had a very complicated history with vaccinations and with just science, government mandated science in general, as we've been abused by that system. However, I want to use my voice and my platform today to encourage all who want to get the vaccine to go get the vaccine. If you still need some time, take your time. But if you think you're ready, I encourage you to. And we need to stop shaming people. We need to stop casting doubt on people who make that choice for themselves or their families. It's life or death out here for some people. They don't have time to play in, well, we don't know, but maybe. But if I know for sure that I won't end up in the hospital, then let me go ahead and get it. So support your friends who are looking to get the vaccine. All right, and lastly in our news, we're going to wrap it up with, we have an amazing sister who is the Attorney General out of New York. And she has made it clear from her time in office that Trump can run, but he cannot hide, and that he will be brought to justice. And with that, there's now been they have now convened a grand jury to look into some fraud allegations of the Trump organization. Usually when a grand jury is convened, there's usually good enough evidence, or they think they have good enough evidence to come with charges. That's exciting. I feel like I've seen this man, his family, his organization escape justice for so many years, decades. But now it seems like maybe there will be a pursuit of justice. As it is, this does not mean that Trump's going to go to jail. Don't think that. The Trump organization is being investigated. Just like many of us know people in certain crime situations have a fall guy, do not think that Trump does not have a fall guy or wouldn't even turn in his own son to save himself. I have no doubt. All right, but we're going to follow that, and we're going to see what comes of that, and hopefully we get some indictments. So that's going to cover it for our current events section. And we're going to switch gears right now into the main. Oh, did I do that right? Is that like the whoa thing? I think it's called. But anyways, we're going to change gears real quick. And we're going to jump into our main topic of the day. We have some very special guests who are joining me right now as I speak. Our main topic of the day is going to be about bridging really supporting each other as Black men and Black women. What are we missing from each other? We've heard that Black women need people to show up for them. What does that look like? Let's hear from them. And yeah, so let's bring out our special guest with no further ado. Hi, you guys. How are y'all doing today?
Hey,
Hi.
hey,
You
hey, can
guys
you hear
doing
me?
all right?
I'm doing good.
All right, for introductions purposes, you guys tell the people who you are, where you're from, any Black Greek letter affiliation, any HBCU affiliation. Let us know. What's up?
All
Ladies
right,
first. Miss
go
Aubrey,
ahead.
do you mind going?
Sure. Abray, she, her pronouns. I am a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated.
Oh, hey,
Um,
sorority.
no. Let's see. I am a civil rights attorney and I live out in California.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Fred Pritchett. I own Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated out of Benedict College. I'm a teacher over here in Griffith-Spalding County in Georgia.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you both for joining me here today. Um, I am so excited for this conversation. I know, Aubrey, you and I have had this conversation before, like kind of one off, and it was really healthy. But I think it's time that we bring this to the forefront of the congregation. I think it's time we lay all our burdens at the altar about what we're going through. So, what I'm going to do is, I'm actually not participating in this conversation.
Hmm.
I'm just going to be asking you guys some questions and getting you guys' feedback from it, okay?
Okay.
So I want to first start off with one question. First for the guys. In general, do you feel appreciated and supported by Black women?
I
Yes,
believe.
and explain why that is. You feel like.
Okay. So yes. I believe, especially during the field I'm doing now with events and entertainment. Black women are very supportive in everything we got going on. Plus, we need them as much as possible, what I'm saying, to put everything together. So, definitely would say yes.
All right, Aubrey. Oh, y'all didn't tell me my camera was off.
So there's a lot there. I think that we're starting to move into a space where um like the Black community is recognizing that like a lot of the conversations that we have about Black folks have centered men, because there's intersectionality with this, right? Patriarchy, and that as it relates to kind of just like issues that Black women have, our issues just have not been centered. So I think that because of that, it kind of catapults into relationships as well, and not being able to feel that support in just general areas of our life can also mean that, in relationships it's like, okay, like I don't see you out here supporting me. So I think that there's work that can be done, but I think that we're starting to have the conversations now about like what does it mean to actually support Black women, and not necessarily make Black women have to be the martyr for every single thing that comes up, including in their romantic relationships.
Okay, feel that, feel that. All right, kicking it to the fellas. What's the number one misconception that you feel like Black women may have about Black men?
Hmm. That that's a good question. That's a good question. I want to say, 'cause I can't speak for everybody. Um, that's a good question. One misconception I might want to say is that we're not ready to commit, and I think that might be something that might be a misconception of where we at that point in time may have something to do with that. So like we all trying to hustle, 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 and I think sometimes that can be led as a I don't want to commit because of that, and it might be some misconception to where we could be at as far as in relationship and try to build each other up, and we might be looking at it as in well, she's not there with me. So instead, let me go ahead and try to put as much power as I can into this so she can see this vision I'm trying to put out. So that's what I would say. It's I think our hustle sometimes can be iterated as we're not trying to commit to you at all.
Okay. I like that. That's a very PG, politically correct answer. I'm gonna push it though. Because what we're not gonna do is front. We are here. This is for our people. This is a healthy conversation to have. When you say that Black women, a misconception maybe that Black women feel like Black men don't commit. I feel like that's very true. I feel like that's a very, very, very true. I feel like most Black women feel that. However, you said it's because we out here hustling. I don't think that's it. I think it's
Okay.
because I can literally think of all of my male friends, and let's say if I grab 10 of them, only 2 of us have never cheated in a relationship.
Okay.
So when you say that they're not ready to commit, and maybe I can ask Aubrey this, do you feel like you've ever felt like Black men aren't ready to commit? Yes or no?
100% yes.
Okay, and then the other yes or no before I kick it back is, in that, did you feel like it was because of them hustling, or did you feel like it was because of their infidelity?
Okay. Can I?
Y'all, welcome to the show.
All right. Okay.
That's something right there.
I don't feel like it was because of the hustle, because to me it's like, how are you gonna tell me that, like, so anyways, it's like I work all the time too. Like I get that. So like I definitely don't think it's that. I don't necessarily think it's always I don't think it's always the infidelity, but I think that sometimes it's just a level of maturity that's just not there.
Yeah.
Now, is that specific to Black men, or is that just specific to and we have somebody said that's not it? Well, write in the comments what you think it is. We'll read that out. But do you think that it's also a mixture of is that just a man problem? Men in general mature slower than women.
So maturity actually means emotionally?
So I feel like also what it is that a lot of times, unfortunately, and I hate generalizations, but I will say for Black men, and when I say maturity, I think it's like they feel like they're always going to be able to settle down at any point. Okay. And like that, if they're like, okay, I want to have fun through my 30s, through my 40s. When I'm 50, I'll find a partner. And like women are like, okay, what do you expect for us to do for like decades? And so I think that it's just like a lack of maturity. It's just not recognizing that if you find someone that you really feel like you could settle down with, the same way that you all are having to make you all are going to have to like bring parts of yourself, and then also, recognize that you're working in a partnership, that women have to do that as well. And I feel like men are very selfish in that regard, and they act like they're the ones that are giving up things and that women are not. So it's a lack of maturity, I think.
That's very fair. And we got another who commented and said that she agrees with you. It's communication and maturity. And it looks like they go hand in hand. So, we're hearing this. This is why this conversation is so dope, because we can clear up these misconceptions of, listen, this is what I feel like is going on. I also feel as if, as a man, sometimes it's like you guys think we're all going to cheat. But it's not that you think we're all going to cheat. It's that our maturity and our communication isn't always up to par. And I think that is awesome. And again, having 2 Black women here clearly agree on the topic, we get our answers. Now, Aubrey, same question to you. What's one of the biggest misconceptions you feel like Black men have about Black women? That
Black women are not willing to submit. And I think that a lot of times, like, Black men have these like perceptions of, like Black women, they don't want, traditional, like the only parts of like the traditional roles that they want is for like men to pay for things. And I think that there are some women who don't necessarily want to adhere to traditional roles, but I think that a lot of women just want to feel like they can be secure in a relationship before just giving someone all that authority over them. And I think that men have a very antiquated definition of what submission actually means, and they feel like it means that they get to lord over like a woman in a relationship and that they get to control them, as opposed to recognizing that, you know, in certain situations you just need to like figure out how the direction is going to go. And so I think that, you know, a lot of Black men feel like, oh, I don't want to be with a Black woman because she's not going to submit. So
Interesting. One thing I want to say about that, I don't think every man going into submissive situation, talking about that particular, I think it's more as in trying not to control everything. I think that's a problem. You can't control every scenario. And in that standpoint, going into the modern times right now, with everybody got going on, just because somebody's doing something else, you can't sit there and try to control their intake of what they're doing for you. So I think that's one thing we have to look at as men, the controlling part in the relationship. You don't have to. You might be doing something, but even though you put in this much effort into it, if you don't let your partner do anything or try to even speak about doing anything, then you're gonna always get that back push because, especially going to somebody that's been doing something for a long time, you're not gonna be able to jump into that relationship and just think you're gonna control that person's mindset and everything else. So you gotta try to work some kind of compensation so you all can work together. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm thinking on that role, you don't have to actually put in submissive, but you need to find out some kind of compensation, especially going into an older relationship.
Okay. In keeping with that, I think that one thing that I've always thought as when I was younger was that our trauma was monolithic as Black people. Like we all had the same type of trauma.
Hmm.
I feel like as I've grown and as I've gotten older, I've learned that our trauma isn't monolithic. There are certain experiences, certain traumatic experiences that are specific to Black men, and there are
Hmm.
certain traumatic experiences that are specific to Black women. And I say that to lead into this question of asking, what trauma do you think affects your gender that is specific to your gender or mostly specific to your gender, and or how does it manifest in unhealthy ways, do you think? We'll do ladies first this time.
oh gosh, I feel like I need a moment to think about that. What trauma?
As you think, I'm just going to give a little bit more insight, okay? When I think about Black men and when I think about our very alpha mentality, not the fraternity, the characteristic, I think that a lot of that comes from generational trauma that has been passed down to now me and my counterparts kind of walk with it, and we don't realize why we walk with an innate need because we don't realize it, but basically to prove like, yo, I'm full man right here. You know, I also think that you see that intersectionality and why the Black community is very at times homophobic because
Mhm.
that goes against the alpha that is a part of our trauma. And the alpha, I don't think is something that's necessarily natural as much as I think that it has a lot to do with being castrated, with being separated from your family, with being emasculated. And I can see that perpetuate. So that would be an example, like from my point of view. So Aubrey, you, what do you think?
Hmm.
I would say, you know, like for Black women, and I think this actually kind of goes hand in hand with the submission thing, right? Which is that I think that we felt like we had to do everything on our own, that we have to kind of lead, you know, the family, we have to lead a lot of different things. And I think that because of that, not even just in relationships, I think in general, we can be leery of when men get involved, even when they're claiming that they're getting involved to help us as Black women, because we have seen so many times like Black men jump in and say they're going to help, and that's not actually what they do, or they start, taking over things, making things like into something completely different. And so I think that for Black women, a lot of times, even when we I know sometimes I'll have a visceral reaction when someone talks about like police murders and they only talk about Black men, because I'm like, well, okay, but what about us? And I feel like it's true, but also part of it is because we know that we have had to lead everything and we've been left out of a lot of conversations, and that trauma makes it really hard for us to sometimes trust the unit of Black men with Black women.
Okay, Fred, what you got?
So that's two different ways. I was thinking about trauma as in household. So you talk like as a
That's
like
fine
a
too. Go with that.
okay. So if you're in a household and you see you have a father mother figure at the house. Um, I think as a male looking at that, depending on that relationship, can come up into the relationship for that young man going into marriage or something like that. So if you seeing your dad treating your mom correctly and treating everybody nice and make sure everything's right in the house, then you're gonna present that same mode in your household too. Um, if you see your mom on the other side, let's say something switches up and kind of abusive towards your pops, you know what I'm saying, as he's doing work and inside stuff and you're seeing it, that can be something that can go into relationship and trying to back away from Black women as you go into your dating lifestyle. So, and it can switch, it can, I think that kind of trauma can narrate what can happen to um, dating Black women in the young man's life. So that's what I think can go down with that. From trauma starts in the household. So what's in the household is going to go forward first in a relationship
Okay,
until you get
so no, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
until you get a better understanding of who you are as a person and start treating people the way they should be treated. I don't think that's going to change. You're going to do that automatically without even knowing.
Okay, so we identified some traumas, and we're gonna call them TTs, trauma trends. And my thing is, we're really today we're talking about how to support each other and how to be there for each other. And we've heard things like what Aubrey said about, having had been there the whole time, having to do things by themselves and having to break that trauma trend, or even with what Fred said about, you may have seen something growing up that was going on in your house that wasn't right, but we can't continue the trauma trends. And
Mm-hmm.
so my question would be, how do we fix them within ourselves, or how, not how do we fix them, how do we support our counterparts in fixing them? So you both heard each other's examples. So how do you, Fred, how would you help a woman if that's what she knows is standing on her own, being the martyr, having to do it all by herself? How do you help her? Do you think? How would you assume that you approach that situation?
I think your best one, like, he's going back to maturity level. You gotta be patient if you want to be in that type of relationship because you're gonna get a lot more pushback every time you do something positive. Not everybody wants you to be positive all the time. So you doing that can present a person a weakness, especially if they're strong like that, strong minded. Even though you're trying to work with um work with the lady, they might not want that at time. So you just gotta be patient until she invites you in. So that's the only way you're gonna do that. Now, other than that, if you're not ready for that, don't do it.
Aubrey, do you think women will invite a man in if they are patient?
Yeah, I think that it's not going to be linear, right? So there's probably going to be some times where it's like, okay, like you're starting to feel more comfortable. And then, you know, you just, to your point, you have to be patient. Like, 'cause you may do something and then like, nah, I don't know why I tried. Let me back up. And it's gonna just take a level of like understanding that it may take time, and that we all come with our own trauma. So it's like just the recognition of, yeah, we may have our trauma, but we all are bringing something. So I agree with that.
Okay. And Aubrey, how would you support a man who maybe has seen, or how do you presume to support a man who has seen just unhealthy relationship patterns?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is to try to, you know, yourself be a model for what it is that you want to see in your relationship. Like, I feel like it's hard to say, okay, this is what I want my relationship to be like, if you yourself are not willing to take those steps in order to actually model a healthy relationship. And it's helpful if you yourself have seen what you think to be healthy relationships. I mean, I think that the example that was given, it also assumes that, you know, like at least one person is coming from a healthy relationship. And so I think it is worth acknowledging that. And if neither one of you all really have examples of that, like I feel like there are, you know, other outside resources like therapy, couples therapy,
we believe in therapy on the show.
to help you all, because I mean, you know, it's hard, and there's a lot of things that maybe even you thought was healthy, and you realize over time, like, you know what, that actually was not healthy at all. And so I would say, you know, like kind of leaning into some of the things that you've seen that you felt like were healthy, and you just keep doing those, even if the other person isn't a bit able to do that right away. And then therapy as well, couples therapy.
Okay. We got two more questions for you guys. So we've talked about the dynamics so far in a relationship setting. However, we all interact with each other just sometimes on a casual setting, on a friendship setting, right? So I guess my question is, I almost wonder, I've heard recently that men and women can't be friends. And I've heard that a lot. And I almost wonder if our only interactions with each other are only in relationships, what does that do to our overall dynamic? So I guess I'd ask that question. I would ask you, do you believe men and women can be friends? Go ahead, Fred. Fred said he got something to say on that.
All right, so I can say this. I have heard it too. And growing and dating young, when I was younger, I didn't believe you could be friends, because the way it's set up, you're in an environment where everybody is competing against each other. And nobody says anything about it, but if you do this, or you be nice to this person, homegirl, then you might be looked at as part of flirting. You know what I'm saying? So like everything, the dynamics are changing based on the maturity level and the environment you in. So I believe as you get older, things change because you're in a working situation, so you know what's right and what's wrong. So if you're gonna go out and do something, you're gonna go out and do it. You knew that. But in most situations, everybody's trying to work with you and not against you. So if your counterpart is insecure, then that needs to be known. You know what I'm saying? So like, because you're gonna be out, you're grown, so you can't be anything cannot just set you off.
Okay.
As you get older.
Okay. Fair. Aubrey, what do you think?
Yeah, I think. Okay, so the short answer is yes. Of course, men and women can be friends, but I think it's about being honest with yourself and being honest about what that relationship is, and whether or not the way that you all like met, the way that you all actually started your interaction was on a friend level. Because to me, again, that's about being honest with yourself and being honest about that relationship. So it's not the answer, of course, like there are situations where that can be the case. But if the foundation of how you interacted with this person? Is it like you met them on an online dating app and like, you were trying to like get at them and then it's like, oh no, but now we're friends. Like, again, it's just about being honest. And it's also about being, if you're in a relationship, it's also about being open with your partner about who that person is. Because I agree, you are grown, but you also need to think about the appearance of like certain things. And if you have this friendship with you're a man, you have this friendship with a woman, and your partner is not able to ever meet them, that looks
That's
suspect.
problematic.
That's different. That's different. That's different. That's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just about that communication. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think wrapping this up, if you two could say anything to Black men, Black women, not specific this time, about our dynamics and showing up and supporting each other, what would it be? And for example, for me, if I had to say one thing to Black men, it would be just listen sometimes, and don't take it personally. That would be my advice for Black men. If I had to say something to Black women, it would be, it's okay to let Black men in. Not in a relationship level. I'm just saying in general. I have several women friends, I'm sorry, who even with me as a friend, like, were super rude like the first three times we hung out or whatever, and like we're cool now, like years cool. And I was like, hey yo, you almost got cussed out and I almost called my sister to beat you up, just so you know. But it's okay. I think, again, my message would be, we got you. We see your heart. We got you. Even if you've had bad experience in the past, we've got you. So with that, what would be your guys' parting message? I don't know. Fred, go ahead. Alpha was first. Go ahead.
All right. So one thing I wanted to say is, like I said, patience. Be patient. If you're going to go into a relationship, especially going to after 25, you gotta be patient with your partner. You gotta be patient. Um, Another thing I would say is, if it's not gonna work, don't make it work. You know it. If it's not gonna work, don't make it work. Don't try anything. Don't try to keep it forward. Don't try to keep pushing that person's number right up there. Don't do it. For women, you know what you want. So if it's not presenting itself at that point, if that person is not trying to um put himself out there, then you might want to put that person on level 2. You don't have to get that person the full fledged. You don't have to like delete the person out the place. This might be number 2. You know what I'm saying? So if you're dating, difference. If you're dating, you can have your people that you're dealing with. You ain't gotta have sex with everybody. That's cool. You ain't gotta do that. But if you try and talk to somebody you thought was presenting this, and they're not there yet, or they're not even trying to get there, or they're just trying to be around you, you can put them down at the turning pole. It's okay. And same thing got for guys too. You know, so you put them at the turning pole. You don't have to deal with everybody on that sexual level, but you want to make sure that you know where you at with these people. You feel me? Have your crew. Like this summer, you can have much fun you want, but at the end of the day, know who you're dealing with, because that person that's gonna be right there in the corner could be either good or bad, and that's gonna detour higher all this other stuff going on with the submissiveness, with the controllingness and all that stuff. They'll force your hand, or they're gonna be kind of weak. So know who you're dealing with. So keep your 5 on you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aubrey?
Yeah, I would agree with, especially the, you know who you're dealing with. And to that point, just from the relationship standpoint, like, don't settle. And I know there's been a lot of videos that have been going around with certain people who are saying specific things to women about, them like wanting to date outside of their level. And to me,
Wait, is he wait, real quick, is he gay?
look.
I was trying to figure out why a gay man was telling. Okay, go ahead. I had questions. We'll talk.
But to me, I think it's just a reminder, though, especially to Black women, because we're told in so many other spaces that we should be settling, but like that we should not be settling, but no, none of us should be settling. If you have a standard, like you should feel comfortable with that standard, and that's okay, because that's what's going to help you have longevity in your relationship. To me, there's no reason in trying to be with someone that
I'm single now.
You feel like, in like 5 years, you're not gonna want to be with them anymore, right? Like, it's like you need to go in knowing like who you're gonna be with and feeling comfortable with that decision with your partner. And also just like communicate though. So it's not necessarily about, okay, like there's this perfect person out there and I know they're going to check every single box. It's, recognizing what's important for you and, and then working with someone who you feel like you can actually build with. And then I feel like at just a broader, just Black community level, for me, it's a reminder that we're actually stronger together, and that a lot of these conversations we're having kind of in silos, and it's cool for us to be like building ourselves up as Black women, building ourselves up as Black men. But as a reminder, we need to come back together, because in order for us to really have the deep conversations about Black liberation that we want to have as a Black community, we cannot do that in silos. And that goes for the entire diaspora. So we have to come back together and have these conversations together in order for us to really be united and have liberation among our people.
That's very fair. Well, thank you both so much for your time. This has been a great conversation. I think a part 2 is definitely warranted. Maybe in season 2 we can have that and bring you guys back. But again, thank you guys so much. Y'all have a great rest of your night.
All right, you too. Thanks for having me.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.
All right, you guys. So that does it for our show today. We're gonna hold off on the Pick Up Your Feelings segment. Don't worry, I'm coming at you next week as strong as ever. No worries. But I really wanted to thank our guests, Fred and Aubrey. You guys, they really dropped some valuable knowledge for all of us to sit back and to think about. I think the number one thing that I got from both of them was think first, think second, think a third time for the Holy Spirit, and then act. And if we do that, maybe we can come together, maybe better. We can come together better. Maybe we can hear each other more clearly, more effectively. And with that, that's all we got for you guys. Y'all be blessed. Have a great night. And we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. We out.